The final hours leading up to Election Day 2024 have unfolded with high stakes and tension as former President Donald Trump, flanked by First Lady Melania Trump, made his way to cast his ballot in Palm Beach, Florida. With the American public on edge, Trump's responses to pivotal questions, such as whether he intends to declare victory prematurely and his stance on post-election violence, are nothing short of alarming. His evasive and often deflective answers have fueled even more questions about his intentions, his strategy, and the implications of his rhetoric for the future of American democracy. With reports of right-wing factions mobilizing on platforms like Telegram to interfere with voting processes, Trump's statements have only further intensified a volatile environment. As the clock ticks down, it's clear that Trump's approach to this election isn't just about securing votes, but about stoking anxieties, casting doubt on democratic processes, and setting the stage for a potentially chaotic aftermath. This video dissects Trump's recent interactions with the press and the underlying messages in his statements. We'll break down how his tone, his deflection on matters of violence, and his rallying cry to supporters set a disturbing precedent, and why his rhetoric matters now more than ever. 1. Casting doubts. Trump's response to declaring victory. When asked directly if he would wait for all votes to be counted before declaring victory, Trump's response was evasive. Rather than committing to the democratic process, he painted a picture of inevitable delays and potential fraud, remarking that, in his view, some states would take a long time to reach a final count. His statements appeared to prepare his supporters for the possibility of drawn-out election results, but with a sinister undertone that casts doubt on the legitimacy of the process. By not outright stating he would honor the final vote count, Trump subtly fuels distrust among his supporters, creating a narrative where any delay could be seen as manipulation. His words are strategic. In Trump's framing, a clear victory for him is being impeded by an inefficient or corrupt system. This is no accidental rhetoric. It's an orchestrated effort to encourage his followers to view a potential loss as inherently suspicious. 2. No need to tell them about violence. Trump's reassurance, or lack thereof. One of the most unsettling moments came when Trump was asked if he would discourage his supporters from engaging in violence if the election results were delayed or unfavorable to him. His response? I don't have to tell them that. While he followed up with a weak assertion that his supporters aren't violent, his refusal to condemn violence outright is telling. For a former president to leave this question unanswered hints at tacit approval for potential unrest, especially when framed against the backdrop of January 6th, a day still fresh in the minds of Americans. The refusal to firmly disavow violence has been a hallmark of Trump's approach. His core base is not only receptive to his rhetoric, but willing to interpret his words as marching orders. In this instance, Trump's statement was an evasion, one that gives his supporters implicit permission to act as they see fit to defend his presidency. 3. Melania's silence speaks volumes. Standing silently beside Trump, Melania Trump's expressionless demeanor and oversized sunglasses have become almost symbolic. While Trump has taken every opportunity to command the spotlight with his usual bravado, Melania's stoicism has left many wondering where she stands in this high-stakes election. Her silence, however, is not just a personal choice. It reflects the quiet compliance seen in many political figures and spouses caught in Trump's orbit. Some observers note that Melania's posture throughout the campaign has been notably muted, adding to the intrigue around her influence, or lack thereof, in Trump's political maneuvers. Despite her prior comments in support of reproductive rights, her presence by his side without contradiction or comment aligns her with his ultra-conservative stance. Her silence on Election Day, particularly in moments of high tension, reinforces the image of a divided and uncertain administration, one in which loyalty, rather than principles, dictates behavior. 4. Contrasts in voting security. Trump versus the public. While Trump and Melania cast their ballots under the protective umbrella of Secret Service and extensive media presence, everyday Americans face a different reality. Reports of right-wing groups mobilizing to harass voters are spreading, and many citizens express concerns over intimidation tactics. Trump's election security contrasts sharply with the voter intimidation ordinary citizens may experience, especially in Democrat-heavy precincts. On Telegram, right-wing groups have been actively organizing poll watchers to monitor voting in Democratic areas. These groups aim to create a sense of surveillance and tension, which could easily escalate into direct voter intimidation. The inconsistency in experiences between Trump's secure, well-protected voting and the risks faced by average voters highlights the disparities in how Americans experience democracy. 5. An election shrouded in conspiracy and distrust. Trump's recent statements only further fuel the flames of conspiracy that have dominated his political playbook. By insinuating that delays are a sign of malfeasance, he subtly endorses a worldview where his loss would be the result of a rigged system. This strategy is calculated. The messaging positions any outcome other than victory as suspect and sets the stage for his supporters to reject unfavorable results. His words are amplified by his extensive presence on platforms like Truth Social, where his posts label Democrats as cheaters and predict an impending golden age for America. This rhetoric is designed to create a clear divide, one where Trump's followers see themselves as the saviors of an America under siege by radical communists, a phrase Trump has used repeatedly to describe his opponents. 6. The role of far-right platforms. Telegram's encrypted ecosystem. Telegram, a platform with limited moderation, has become the home for far-right groups to share strategies for interfering in democratic areas. Messages within these channels advocate for standing up for their rights at polling stations, a euphemism for voter intimidation. A New York Times analysis reveals that these groups have posted thousands of times, sharing conspiracy theories, violent imagery, and recruitment messages. One of the most troubling aspects is how these groups recruit, using coded language that portrays their actions as patriotic rather than confrontational. This creates a dangerous, self-reinforcing loop where Trump's election fraud rhetoric merges with far-right mobilization tactics, resulting in an atmosphere primed for unrest. 7. A new kind of election threat: organized voter suppression. Historically, election intimidation has targeted marginalized groups. This year, however, far-right groups are increasingly sophisticated, using organized channels to reach thousands of potential recruits. By deploying so-called poll watchers in Democratic precincts, these groups are testing the boundaries of legal oversight and blatant voter suppression. The difference between monitoring and intimidation blurs when armed individuals are positioned at voting locations, a sight Americans associate more with authoritarian regimes than democratic elections. For Trump, this ecosystem of election integrity groups serves as both a tool and an excuse. His rhetoric gives them a justification for their actions, while their presence provides him with plausible deniability. He can claim ignorance while reaping the benefits of their interference. As Election Day unfolds, Trump's words and actions cast a long, unsettling shadow over the democratic process. By refusing to straightforwardly address the potential for violence, and by fanning the flames of conspiracy around delays in vote counts, Trump is playing a dangerous game. His rhetoric has empowered fringe groups to become emboldened in their efforts to disrupt voting and intimidate fellow citizens. Trump's evasive responses and Melania's silent, overshadowed presence encapsulate the ominous tone of this election, a time when words, actions, and even silence speak volumes about a fractured and tense America. As Americans head to the polls, they face a choice not just about leadership, but about the integrity of democracy itself. And with every ambiguous answer and inflammatory post, Trump inches the country further from unity and closer to chaos. With a nation watching, it remains to be seen how Trump's rhetoric and strategy will impact the results and the aftermath of this election. But one thing is certain: the shadow of doubt Trump has cast over the ballot box will not soon fade.